Ladies and gentlemen, he's the samurai of student ministry, the networking ninja, a Jedi master of church budgets, the beast from the southeast, the next-gen nerd himself, CJ!
Welcome back to the Next Gen Nerd Podcast. It has been a minute. For those of you that don't know, I started a new job as a middle school math teacher. Yes, I know. Picked that one in Lake Butler, Florida, and the last month has been crazy. I mean, just a word, it's been crazy. I am exhausted. It's been great. It's been very rewarding, but it's been a lot, and I've just been getting situated, so it's taken me a minute. It's been a little bit. Hoping to get these up a little more regularly moving forward. However, it took a hurricane and 2 extra days off to get this one done, so we'll see. We'll see, but I am optimistic that we'll be able to get these up a little more regularly, hopefully every 2 weeks, maybe more than that, we'll see. Well, today's interview, it's a good one. It's with returning guest Steve Valdez from Save Point Ministries. I had him on a while back, and we talked about X-Men, so we went from a 90s cartoon to a steampunk fantasy heist book. So if you haven't read The Six of Crows, I encourage you to do so. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly. That's what it looks like to me. But before I jump into the interview, a couple things. One, I've got a recommendation. I'm going to try to align my recommendations to the content we're covering. So if you enjoyed the book, you can try this. And so it's not anything new. It's nothing new, but it's something I watched recently. Pulled it back out, dusted it off. It is another heist movie. This one is, it wasn't a well-received movie. The movie is Push with Chris Evans, and it is, I think it's very similar to this. In fact, it may be a knockoff of this. I'm not sure. It doesn't get a lot of love, a lot of similarities. It's a movie about a ragtag group of individuals with psychic abilities. Those psychic abilities are kind of put in categories, kind of like how in Six of Crows they have categories of abilities there as well. And so they're put in these different categories, and this ragtag group has to put together a heist-like scenario, a heist, to steal something to save one of their own who's dying from taking a drug that enhances their psychic abilities. Golly, this really sounds like the dang book we read. Like I said, I think it's taken some inspiration. There's several other responsibilities, and it's definitely not a masterpiece of cinema, but it's fun if you let it be fun. So I would encourage you to check it out. That's Push. I think I watched it recently on HBO Max. You'll have to look and see where you can find it for you. Yeah, it's got some good performances. It's definitely a slow burner though, so just stick with it. I've enjoyed it, and I hope you will as well. What would you recommend? Your favorite heist movie? You can let me know either by leaving a comment on our YouTube video or in a review, or you can email me, nextgennerdpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll share it on the next show. And would love to be able to give you a shout out for that. Speaking of shout outs, a couple comments that we've had over the last couple weeks that I wanted to go ahead and share. If you leave a comment on our YouTube video, I will read it. As long as it is not terribly mean or vulgar, I will read it. My buddy White Fox said on the episode on Primal, he says, "Great episode, keep it up, bro." I'm hoping to, and it really was a great episode. I mean, you got Hector Mireille. It's going to be a great episode. So go back and check out the episode on Primal if you missed it already. For an episode before that, Birthright, my buddy Matthew West 3646 says, "Hey, great episode. I only read the first book so far. As an artist, I really enjoyed the art too and the flow of the page spreads. I really felt the story was compelling, and the way they decided to lay out the storyline was very interesting and allowed for the twists and turns to be more impactful, making you feel like you have it figured out and then throw an element in the story that made you question it." He says he agrees with Todd about the marriage falling apart in the beginning. It is not a kid-friendly series. He also says, "Todd, Mosaic Fan Art, great work. I now follow you on Instagram. You're amazing at what you do." That he is. If you get a chance to see Todd Turner, Mosaic Fan Art, at a convention, bring some cash along with you, okay? Buy one of it. He does these little 12 by 12 mosaics. Buy one of those, or he's got a bunch of stickers of stuff he's done in the past. Buy some of those. Check it out. I mean, if you get a chance to find out where he's going, you can find his podcast on Sis and Big Pop's Culture, and they talk about where he's going to be. Check them out. Last comment here is from Logan Burrows, my brother, and he says, "Hey, That's what it says. That's all it says. Hey! So glad to have you guys comment and take a look at those videos. And again, if you leave a comment there or leave a review, I will read it on the show and give you a shout out. Appreciate you guys supporting the show. And with that, I think it's time to start the interview. Let's get nerdy. Well, guys, I am here with Steve Valdez of Save Point Ministries. Had him on for X-Men and thoroughly enjoyed that. And so when I posted our latest batch of these are things that I want to talk about, he said Six of Crows, and
Heck
you
yeah.
were actually the only one that said, well, that's not true. There's one of the lady that said, my daughter's a big fan of Six of Crows, but I didn't want to have like an 11-year-old that I don't
Right.
know on the podcast with me. So I said, this works out well. And so we're going to get into Six of Crows in a little bit. But first, Steve, man, how are things going? What's something exciting and or life-giving going on right now in your life? We would love to hear what's going on, man.
Things are going really well. It's summer, so my kids are home, and as a guy who works from home most often, it's nice to spend a lot of time with them. As far as like cool things going on right now, like on top of that, with my kids being home, I have started introducing musicals to my kids. I love musicals.
Same.
I'm really into this type of stuff. So I just introduced Phantom of the Opera and Les Mis to my kids, and my oldest daughter, she's 12. At the end of Les Mis, is like, like wiping tears from her eyes, like that. I'm like, it's a good movie to cry to, man. This is a good one for that. So
there you go. So are those like your two favorite, or do you have other ones that top those?
Les Mis is probably my favorite. Like a lot of times with me, it's whatever one I've most recently been listening to is my favorite.
Okay.
And Les Mis is second. But that's always constant. And I think now I'm just saying that Les Mis is my favorite because not only is it beautiful music, not only is it incredible story, but it's deeply like entrenched in the grace of Christ and showing that grace to others as well, and how to extend that and ways to be too legalistic about it, with Javert on the other side of things and him being very, very, devout in his faith, but expressing it in a very, wrong way. And so, yeah, just beautiful story. But on top of that, as somebody who's full-blooded Mexican, I love In the Heights. That movie, I felt seen in that movie. And so I didn't know about the musical until I saw the movie, and I watched it and I'm like, dang, this is amazing. I love this, man. And so that was good. And so I was introduced to the musical for that afterward. Dear Evan Hansen, as somebody who was a youth pastor for 10 years and just being able to identify with teenagers, that one will always make me cry at the musical, man. Every single time that one makes me cry. So yeah, but a ton. I could go on and on about musicals.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
So, I've seen musicals plenty growing up, and enjoyed them. Anything with a good story, I'm in for. But I remember at my wife and I, for our first anniversary, we went with her family to New York, and we are going to go see a Broadway play. And we went to go see Shrek, and I was like, Shrek? Like, really? Like, that's like, I remember thinking like there are all these other ones that I've actually heard of, and so we went and saw it, and it was amazing. Like it was amazing. I thought, okay, if they can do Shrek this way, like sky's the limit. Let's see. And so since then, Karen and I, we've seen several, and they have a spot about 45 minutes to an hour from us in Jacksonville that has Broadway touring companies come through there all the time. And so we've gotten to see several there. We've seen Les Mis there and Wicked, and
Wicked's so good.
Wicked is good. We saw Hamilton there.
Yeah.
I would say, sadly, my least favorite of the ones we saw was School of Rock, and it was just because he was trying to be Jack Black and he couldn't be, and so like that was
only Jack Black is Jack Black.
It was hard. That was difficult, but there were several others that we really enjoyed. I would say Les Mis is probably one of my favorites. Wicked as well. We've seen Wicked several times. Really good ones. I was gonna joke and say that my favorite musical though is Lego Movie 2. That's my favorite musical. Is Lego Movie 2. But I said that joke, and now I have the song when the not so evil queen is trying to get them on their honors. I got that on my head. Haven't you heard? Yeah. So sorry. That probably is my favorite musical. Probably is. So besides musicals, besides Six of Crows, what other nerdy stuff are you into right now, man?
So man, I love Magic the Gathering. I played Magic the Gathering for a long time, but I wasn't like really into sort of the practices of Wizards of the Coast and the way that they're doing, too many reprints, whatnot. So I hadn't bought cards for 9 years. I hadn't bought a single pack of Magic the Gathering since Khans of Tarkir 9 years ago. And the new Lord of the Rings set just dropped. And they got me, man. They got me good. And so I bought I participated in the pre-release just for funsies, and I'm looking at these cards. I'm like, the art is incredible. They've got like these full art cards that actually put together like a puzzle, and so you get bigger pictures as you see them all together, whatnot, and all these characters that I love and everything. And I'm just like, this is incredible. So I bought a few more packs, and then I bought a booster box. And then I went through all of my my Magic bulk, went through all my bulk rares, and I found some cards that are worth like $50, $90, things like that. And I'm pulling all these cards that I'm not using in decks, and I end up having about $700 of trade value that I'm trading in to buy more Lord of the Rings stuff right now. So like they got me hooked. And so that's the big nerdy thing that I'm into right now is a lot of the Magic Gathering Lord of the Rings stuff, but also playing Tears of the Kingdom. And that game also has me hooked. I'm probably 80 hours into it, and I'm going to guess halfway done. So
okay. So I don't have access to a Switch, so I haven't played. I have in the past had access to one and played Breath of the Wild and thoroughly enjoyed it. So I would enjoy it. My kids are scheming on how they can pull their money and get one, and then we'll see.
Man, you like Breath of the Wild? It's good. Breath of the Wild's an incredible game. Tears of the Kingdom almost feels like a Breath of the Wild DLC, whereas it is Breath of the Wild, but better in every way. Nice. It takes everything Breath of the Wild did and makes it better. And so it's just that good. Where Breath of the Wild is one of the greatest games ever made, and Tears of the Kingdom is better than that. So it's nice. It's an outstanding game.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to checking it out. Well, today we're talking about Six of Crows. So for those of you that don't know what the Six of Crows is, I meant to look up the author's name. What's the author's name?
Leigh Bardugo.
That's not a real name. That's a fake name.
I know, right? It's gotta be. Nobody's really named Leigh Bardugo.
Yeah,
but no. Good. When I've looked her up, it seems to be her real name.
So, there you go. Okay, Leigh Bardugo. It's a book I didn't realize was set in a much larger universe. I knew that there was a duology, a sequel to this book. But the Six of Crows follows a team of six. When I've described this to others, I've said it's kind of like steampunk fantasy Ocean's 11. It's kind of what it feels like. It's a heist with magic, and so this team is brought together to go and find somebody who's making a drug that makes magic use unstable. The drug is highly addictive and is targeting a specific ethnic group of people. And so some have joined this team to try and protect that group of people. Some have joined this team in order to profit, to make money. Right. Some are just drug along because they are needed in there. This is filled with the same twists and turns you would get in any other heist movie or book you would read. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Characters are very well fleshed out, very well thought out. The only problem is because you're introduced to so many at once, it is hard to differentiate who is doing what. Think about the first time you watch Ocean's 11. If you've watched Ocean's 11 more than once, you know the characters a lot better, but you get to the end of that first time and you're like, all right, there was the Asian dude that did flips. There was, there was
George Clooney and Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's really hard to go ahead and go, who does what? But
with fantasy books, it's like that, especially because they give them fantasy names like Kaz and Inej and things like that. And so if their names were Greg and Larry, it'd be a little bit easier because they're familiar things that you can put familiar things to. But when they've got these fantasy names, the toss all over the place, and so it gets a little Pekka and whatever else.
Pekka Rollins. Yep. Which is so funny because I listened to it. So going back through and reading these names, going, oh, that's how they spell that. Okay, that's interesting. I kept hearing it's Pekka with an A, Rollins, but I kept hearing with an ER. I'm like, I thought it was some bad nickname they gave him. Like that was. I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, because you've got all these nicknames that are in here. Everyone in here has a nickname. Everyone in here has some weird, mysterious whatever. But no, it's a suspense heist, fantasy, steampunk. It was interesting.
Sprinkled with romance.
Yes.
Everything's in there.
Yes. And so you informed me that it was in this universe and that the Shadow and Bone trilogy comes before this in the timeline. And there's a couple seasons on Netflix. And you said you were the bigger fan of the second season. You said it was amazing second season. Only watched the second season. No,
first
I know,
season
I'm picking on you.
First season. Yeah, man. I'll throw hands right now, man. No.
So you said this crew is in that. Is they in the first season as well?
Yeah, and it's almost like a prequel to the books because it introduces the first season of Shadow and Bone introduces Nina and Matthias and how they met. Like it's their whole backstory, and then it also follows Inej, Kaz, and Jesper on an entirely original kind of caper, we'll say. And it's well worth watching. Man, the first season of Shadow and Bone is so good, which is why the second season was such a disappointment. But
that's how
I
it
won't
goes,
get too
man.
deep into that.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
I was talking to Hector Mire this morning about Titans, and I said, "What were your thoughts on season 4?" And he just like grit his teeth, like, "I don't want to talk about season 4. I love the show. I don't want to talk about it." I should have picked on him and told him it's just because Red Hood only has 3 scenes. Like that's the only reason why he didn't like it. But anyways, no, it was other stuff. If you haven't seen it, Brother Blood's the villain. Are you a big fan of Brother Blood? I never even heard of Brother Blood.
I know Brother Blood real good.
I don't know Brother Blood at all. And he, like, if he is like he is in the show, he is just a whiny, sniveling. I couldn't stand him. The character was not well done. But we're not talking Titans. We're talking Six of Crows. And so why did you love Six of Crows? You let a little bit of it out as we were talking about the synopsis, but why did you love this book?
I love the mixing of genres that this does. You know, you'll get like true high fantasy books, you'll get true heist books, and I've read books like this, but the way that this successfully and beautifully kind of weaves the low fantasy and heist genres together, where you have this fantasy world in which whenever you get magic like this, I mean, this isn't magic, obviously, they're called Grisha and they have special abilities, but whenever you get magic in a world, it's really easy for a writer to create MacGuffins that they can just solve every problem they want.
Right.
So when you're in a heist, you could just say, and they magic their way into the vault and grab all the money and magic their way out. And the end. This makes sure to, number one, only one of the 6 have the Grisha abilities, and she like doesn't use it to any massive extent at any point. It is very like gently weaved into the entire story, and in fact getting around the Grisha is more of a concern more often. And so having these normies, I guess, these non-Grisha folk that are trying to complete this heist, and so it makes it feel very much in a fantasy world. You definitely feel like they are fantasy and created like incredible abilities, but also you feel the tension of a heist, and it's so well done, and these genres are so well wrapped together that I love that. It was really, really exciting for that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I do enjoy genre mixing. I mentioned this the last couple episodes. Some of the comics that I've read lately that I've really enjoyed did that. And so Justice League Death Metal was one where you have the Justice League characters, but it's set in this futuristic fantasy world, and it's like, yes, I enjoy that. That's fun. And then another one was Marvel Legacies, and it takes like the prototypical the first Doctor Strange and the first Ghost Rider, and they're set in like prehistoric past, and it has them teaming up together as like the first Avengers. I enjoy those things. I do enjoy that. Another thing I really liked about this book was I haven't read a heist book, I guess, in a while, if ever, but there was still that same feeling of everything's falling apart, but by the end of the book, it's all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan. Yeah. And so like it's like every A-Team episode, all those things, like it's all falling apart. What's going to happen? And then you get to the end, you go, this is really good. And I really felt like the characters were really well fleshed out. Like now that I've gone back through and read some some reviews of the book and profiles of the characters, it's like, oh, I could see that was that character. And so really enjoyed those. You mentioned a little bit on the Grisha's abilities, so that's another kind of set piece here, is you have these Grisha abilities, which are kind of certain classes have certain abilities, and then you have the Druskella, the witch hunters, the magic hunters, that they are trying to, well, they say they're trying to eradicate the Grisha, but you learn much later on that that's not what they're doing. And so what are your thoughts there with that? I mean, we talked about this a little bit in the X-Men episode.
I have exactly that written here.
there's all these abilities, and then there's people who are scared of them but still want to exploit them because they'd still be useful. How did that bounce off you, ma'am?
I once listened to a podcast about a guy saying why he liked the DC movies more than he liked the Marvel movies. And he said that it was because he felt the Marvel movies had a more realistic response of how humans would respond to superheroes. And it wasn't this, oh, you're a hero now, we love you, you're awesome. It was fear. And it was like this, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? We need to find a way to fight this person. We need to find a way to take him out if we need to. And I think that's honest. I like the Marvel movies better, but I think that's an honest, like, and understandable viewpoint, because the X-Men explores that, like we talked about last time, and this explores exactly that, where we have these people with natural super abilities, and therefore there was another group of people that just hates them for it. No reason why. There's so much fear that they hate them for it right off the bat. And so the Druskel are this group of people that are bred to hunt Grisha and specifically trained on how to spot them, to weed them out of hiding, and to find them and capture them. And you, again, like you said, they say to kill them, but no, it's to capture them and to test on them and all kinds of other stuff that go on within the story here. So it feels very honest and real. Again, instead of people just being like, whoa, cool, you have superpowers, there's this natural fear to it. And then on the flip side, in the places where the Grisha are accepted, they're seen as tools very often. Like, how can we use your abilities? Again, there's no superheroes in this story. Not a single person is out there saving lives with this. People are sailors because they're tide breakers, and people are or they're the squallers, so they help with the sails, whatever else. And or people are doctors because they're heart renders, and they know, they're medics, they know how to do this stuff. And so they make it feel very natural. It feels like what it would actually happen is if these abilities existed in a real world.
Yeah, it's like a heightened skill, that you're, if you're really good with this, then we'll put you in here and you can do this, rather than it being their persona. You know what I mean? Like,
because they actually explore people who have the ability but are bad at it.
Right.
Just like, yeah, I can do this, I'm just not very good. Like, it's kind of not my natural talent. So yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Another one of the themes was the power and danger of vengeance. That vengeance drove Kaz to do so many things and to be great, that it did. But there's also a danger there. There's a danger there in vengeance. We know that,
absolutely.
That even just bitterness, not even an active vengeance, but even bitterness is drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer from it. Yeah. And so, as to Christians and as to pastors, we know that there is definitely a story of redemption aside from this vengeance, and putting those things aside. But how do you, or can you, tell a story of redemption with this at the core? Looking at Kaz Brekker, his dealings with one of the main characters who when he was a young child snookered him and eventually caused the death of his brother because of his efforts. And so how do you tell a redemptive story there?
So the tough part in this is number one, I guess we're going to spoilers. Yeah, we'll spoil things.
Listen, this book came out years and years and years ago.
Yeah, okay.
If chances are, if you're listening to this and you haven't read the book, you're my mom, and you'll probably go back and read the book. So you're fine. You're good to go. Otherwise, you're going, I don't know. Listen, there's another podcast I listen to, and it's Wizard and the Bruiser. It is not family friendly. Love that show, but they'll have a topic, and I'll go, I don't know nothing about that. Marcus played, and I will just skip over it. But if it's one that I'm familiar with, I'll listen to it. So yeah, spoilers, plenty of spoilers here.
Cool.
It is a heist book, so
But yeah, within this book, Kaz is not a redeemed character by any means. Like, and neither is Pekka Rollins, the guy who snookers him, to use your term. That's a good one. And in both of these things, it is just a straight up story of vengeance. And the tough part with telling a story like that with the redemptive thing is, good stories of vengeance make the reader feel satisfied at the success of revenge. Like that's what. And then when I say good, I mean satisfying stories of vengeance. And with you being like, yeah, he got him. Yes, that's perfect. You know what I mean? But the challenge in this is, if you're going to redeem somebody, how do you also satisfy that? Yes. And I thought of like a couple of examples of this. And number one is Ted Lasso. To minor spoilers for Ted Lasso, the very beginning, there's a divorce, and the woman Rebecca really wants revenge on her husband. And by the third season, there's still stuff going on, and she's still kind of upset. And like her team is playing his team, and she finally just says, "Wait, I don't care anymore. Hold on, like I didn't think about this, but I just don't care anymore. Like
Mm.
I want to win because I love our team and I love what we do. And I just don't, whatever to him, I don't care anymore.
Mm.
And that, because they built 3 seasons of that tension, that was very satisfying. But without that much storytelling, it's so hard to make that a satisfying moment. The other example I thought of, we talked about earlier, is Les Mis. In Les Mis, there's Jean Valjean and Javert, and these guys, Javert's hunting Jean Valjean the whole time. And at the moment that revenge could have happened, Jean Valjean sets Javert free. And the way that they satisfy this, and this has kind of become a trope in the years, is the good guy sets the bad guy free, and the bad guy doesn't know how to deal with that, and so he ends up committing suicide. And it's tough to write that moment that you feel satisfaction when the revenge isn't actually successful. But I think it's more important. I honestly think it's a better story to say that the person, you use the perfect phrase, revenge is drinking poison and expecting somebody else to suffer. Of somebody looking at that glass of poison and putting it down and being like, I don't need it. That's, to me at least, that's so much more satisfying and a better life philosophy.
Yeah, I think another component we see in stories is the devaluing of the vengeance based on the increased value of something else. And so I think about how Kaz feels about Inej and how that kind of builds up, and that becomes more important than the rest. That when you have nothing else, then that vengeance takes center stage, because that's what we're going to focus on. And I can appreciate that dissipation. We see this more in the relationship of Nina and Matthias. That there is this tension, there is this whatever, but as they begin to see each other for who they really are, and as there's something else that's more valuable than vengeance, then it takes a back seat.
I didn't even think about Nina and Matthias. That's a really great example, because I think that one isn't about forgiveness. It's about understanding, and understanding to the point that there is no need for forgiveness. You just understand. I no longer blame you for what you did. I understand what you have done. Nina understands that Matthias was brainwashed and, just fed all this propaganda, and that's why who he was. But she was also able to win him over, and now she understands him, he understands her, and there was no need for forgiveness from either of them anymore, because they just understand each other. And yeah, that's a beautiful story of redemption and vengeance. Absolutely.
Yep. Of course, because I came up with it. I'm a smart guy. That's who I am.
Yeah. All right. Good point.
But funny enough, like when I do book episodes, I try to look for good analysis of these books, and this is the first one that they've had Spark Notes on. So like people have read it and thought about it and put down themes and motifs. So if you're like, wow, he hit all the themes, it's just because I found really good Spark Notes.
I did have to go back and read a couple of synopses to be like, okay, let's fill in some gaps. I read these books years ago. So
another one of those themes that I found in these Spark Notes were that Kaz wears these gloves the whole time, and they have all. They talk about, they ask him, why do you wear the gloves? And he says, you've heard 1,000 reasons why, just pick one of them. Like, just pick one of them and go for that. Yeah. But really, when the gloves come off, there's nothing wrong with his hands. They're not horribly scarred or anything like that. And so they were saying that this is really more to conceal the emotional trauma from his childhood. That it was this security blanket. It was being able to hold on to this. And so for him, seeing how he behaves, and then you being youth pastor for a long time, me being youth pastor for a long time, we see this hiding of trauma in other things, and that's really what enables us to minister, when the Lord reveals, like, this is really what's going on, like this is really what's happening here. The phrase that I hear a lot is hurt people hurt people. That when you have bullies in school, like, okay, well, why is it that they are that way? Is there something that's happened at home? Is there something in, whatever that is? So how do you see this played out in people that you minister to on a daily, weekly, monthly basis?
So there's the more direct ones, and you already kind of talked about them. These are the bullies, the people that hurt people because they have been hurt themselves. And it's this psychological justification of it happened to me because it happens to everybody. And so if I can make this happen to everybody, then what happened to me makes sense. What happened to me is okay. It's not a wild out of, crazy thing that has caused me trauma. It's just life. And so I got to make this life for everybody too. And it's a terrible thing. I mean, my daughter was telling me about a kid in her school who was a bully and acted out all the time, ended up getting expelled. And she was like, man, it was so dumb. I don't know why he acted like that. What a doofus and all this other stuff. And I'm like, man, that's tough. Like, and I finally asked her, what would it take for you to act like he did? And she said, I would never, ever do that. Though these things are ridiculous. And I'm like, exactly. So what like crazy things would have to happen for you to act like that? And she's like, I don't know. I would have to think that everybody hates me. I guess I would think that and like, she lists all these things that the point she was trying to make was the only way I would do that is if everything went wrong. I would never, ever do that unless everything went wrong. And so I finally asked her, I finally told her all that stuff probably happened to him. Like that's probably what he went through. So like you see this masked with bullies because that's what they go out and do. But at the same time, one that, Save Point Ministries and our whole goal, the internet is that a lot. People just retreat to the internet to find a place where they feel safe, where they can block people that they don't want to hear, and be in the places that they want to be and never have to worry about anything else. And talk about the gloves. And in the book, I don't know if this is a spoiler, the second story, the second book, I don't think it is. Kaz wears the gloves because he ended up on a barge of dead people and he could feel their flesh surrounding him, and he just doesn't like to feel flesh anymore. He doesn't want to touch another human being ever again. And so he wears these gloves to never touch another human being ever again. And I feel like the internet is like that, where you never have to actually interact with another human being ever again. You can have these very, filtered screen in between you or text in between you conversation that at any point, if you are too uncomfortable or if it's not exactly what you want, get up and walk away. Put your phone back in your pocket, go to a different website, open a different app, whatever you need to do. And the internet can easily become like those gloves to help filter human interaction.
No, it's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, I think it's much more common than we would say it is, this idea of hiding emotional trauma to the uninitiated. To those that are not well versed here, I think one of the great things that's come out of the last 20 years is it's more and more normal to bring those things up and go, let's talk about it. That's we don't need to hide behind that. We don't need to act like that's not there. In fact, that's not healthy. Let's talk about those things. I forgot who I was talking to recently, but I was talking about going through therapy when my parents divorced, and it was like, I said, I don't know if that was useful or whatever. And they're like, it's very useful. It's serious trauma, And so it's like, I mean, that makes sense. It makes sense looking at it now. And I go, I'm very comfortable talking about how I feel. I'm very comfortable talking about, my struggles or whatever else. And so, that's a good point that really is the internet, that it becomes could be a in good ways a safe place, but also can be a negative safe place where I can say what I want and no one can tell me otherwise. Neither of those really solves the problem. Neither solves the problem. It has to be dealt with.
I mean, the internet's great. Like, don't get me wrong. I love the internet. I love all things we can do. I mean, we're talking right now via the internet, right? I love this ability. You're far away. I'm in Oregon. I don't remember what state you live in. Florida. Yeah. Literally other sides of the nations, opposite ends of the nation. So the internet's spectacular. It really is, but it can also be used in very unhealthy ways.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So we've talked about what we do like. Is there anything that you would have changed about the story, or anything you didn't like about the story or the series that you'd say, I really want to see this differently?
Two things drove me nuts and still drive me nuts today. And my wife read them too, and they drive her nuts. Number one, and the biggest one, is the fact that they're all like 16 to 18 years old.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're not. Just like they literally, the only reason they do that is so it identifies more to young adults and to teenagers. But in every way that they act, in everything that they do, no, they're mid-20s. You know what I mean? And they're young people for sure, but they're not 16 years old. So it was frustrating to me that like, and then like, with his 17-year-olds, and I'm like, no, I know 17-year-olds. That's not a 17-year-old. Like,
I mean, even with trauma, even with living on the streets, everything else, the timeline doesn't match up to where at the time that we're talking about. So if Kaz is 17, 18 years old, and again, spoilers,
right,
and he's already lost his parents, he's already worked for Pekka Rollins, he's already developed a relationship there and bought into this scheme, and it's failed, and they've fallen on hard times, and his brothers died, and he's joined up with another crew, and he's risen to the top of that crew, and he's 17 years old. Did it start when he was 4? Like, it doesn't, like the time span there. I'm with you. Like, I read that, I was like, and two, it doesn't help that I listened to it, and none of the voice actors were 17, 18. The voice actors were all their 20s and 30s. It was a full voice cast, and none of them were children. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Artist choice, author's choice, I guess. But,
right. I promise you that was an editor's choice. I promise you Lee Bardugo wrote this with 20-year-olds in mind, and an editor, the publishing house, whatever, came back like, can we just say they're 17? Because it really identifies more with that age group when you say
we'll
that.
add an extra 2 figures on the end of the contract. How's that sound? Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
17, 18. Yeah, the timeline doesn't match up. The maturity of emotions, even dealing with those emotions, doesn't line up with a 17-year-old. Possibly when you get some characters that are less proficient in their abilities, you could say, well, they're only 17, but they're all 17 and some are proficient. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. That seems problematic, and I don't think it would. I think it would enhance the story if they were a span of ages too. If you've got
absolutely,
if you got Kaz and Inej and they're in their 30s, and it's also really icky because there's all the brothel stuff, and if these are kids that are 17 and they've been there for years, like
exactly, they're 17 now icky. And they have years of experience there. It's real gross, man.
It's gross. I mean, it's still gross if they're in their 20s or 30s. However, it's the slightest of shades less gross. But I think if you have Kaz who's in his 30s, and you have Inej who's in her 20s, and you have some of the crew that are actually really young, but you have and so I think that plays to some dynamic that you can use in a story. But yeah, I'm with you. That had to been an editor's choice because it don't make sense to me. Didn't make sense to me at all.
I love the idea that Matthias is 19 and Nina is 17, or because then they have this teenage romance, this fling that they had, but also they have all these indoctrination that they've gone through in very recent years. Like, that makes sense to me. But yeah, with a lot of the others, that it was tough for me to get through. But I will say that for those of you to read it, it was honestly as easy for me just replacing numbers. Whenever I read the number 17, I just put 25 in there in my brain, and it was as easy as that.
If you listen to it 2x, you don't even notice the ages. It doesn't even pop up. And so, yeah, that was again, I was reading summaries and analyses on it. I'm going, I don't remember that at all. It doesn't make any sense, but yeah. Whatever. She said there was 2.
Yeah. The other thing is, and this is one that is still popping up a lot today. It's pretty common, but it's a trope in writing that drives me nuts. And it's the one person has a toxic relationship with somebody, but they still love them, and it's the I want to fix them. So specifically, it's the Inej and Kaz relationship, that Inej loves Kaz and she wants to help him and wants to fix him, and like every time, like maybe he's about to reach out, but let's be honest, he's awful. He's an awful human being. He does a lot of terrible things. We love him because he's our awful human being as we're reading, and he's 10 steps ahead of other people, and it's satisfying to read those things. But he treats her horrifically, and he constantly is breaking her heart and constantly being cruel to her. And when we read things like this and glorify this type of relationship, then especially when the goal age is 16 and 17-year-olds, then 16 and 17-year-olds someday meet a jerk who is terrible to them, and they think in their brain, I can fix this person the way that Inej wants to fix Kaz. And it's all throughout these, like, people I hear a lot say with Harry Potter, like they wanted to ship Harry Potter and Draco. And I'm like, that's a toxic relationship. They're terrible to each other. They should not, in so many different ways, there's so many different relationships where there's the bully, the cruel person, and the good person. and people want them to have a relationship. And I hate this because it just encourages toxic relationships, encourages people being satisfied with being treated terribly. That idea that if this person is teasing me and is terrible to me, that means that they like me. That means that they have a crush on me. It's like, it doesn't matter. Don't be satisfied with being treated that way. Don't allow yourself to be treated like that.
They can be a fact, and it's still a terrible relationship. Like, those are not mutually exclusive. Yes, they can't be teasing you because they like you. It doesn't mean they get your attention. Doesn't mean you get your attention. I don't know if you've seen these, but several reels have been going around where it's his dad and his daughter, and it's like, I'm having tea parties with my daughter, so your dusty son has to step up his game. Like, it's like all these things, like, I'm treating my daughter right, so your son can't just get away with mediocre. Like, that's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
Like,
yes.
Sounds good.
I would love my daughters someday to meet a guy who is like kind of a jerk to her, but also kind of flirts with her sometimes. And then one day asks her out, and they're like, no, you're terrible to me. Why
You're
on earth?
loser.
No, yeah, absolutely not. I was raised to know that I should desire somebody who is going to be in a healthy relationship, healthy, encouraging relationship with me. I guess all three of my kids, in this case, I say my daughter because it's Inej and Kaz, but all three of my kids, absolutely, yes. So it's a trope. Again, let me be clear. It's a trope all throughout fiction. This happens all the time, but it drives me nuts.
And I may have missed some of that, like because you said that, I'm going, I don't know that I necessarily noticed that, but I learned this. I did an episode with Hillary Fisco and Charlie. We were talking about Castle in the Sky, and she was like talking about something else. Like, I didn't pick up on that at all, and it could just be that that's just.
Well, and let me be clear. There's another book, and there's a third book that they kind of like feature in. So these characters, their story goes on a lot more.
Could be because in this I'm going like, I know, like, I don't know, maybe he was just whatever, but that's funny. So things that I didn't like about this book, like I said, again, I don't know how many of these characters are introduced in the Shadow and Bone, and so that would be but having so many characters introduced at once, it was hard keeping track of who was what, and especially when you have scenes where these two are here and these two are here and these two are here, and that was a little challenging to follow.
And none of the characters are introduced in the Shadow and Bone book. It's they're in the Shadow and Bone TV show on Netflix.
Oh, okay, all right.
On Netflix, but the Shadow and Bone book is basically just an entirely separate story that exists in the same world. So I agree.
That was a challenge, and I didn't pick up on this, and maybe this is in a subsequent book, but I guess there was supposedly some relationship between Jesper and Wylan,
right? And
so I'm going, and my biggest beef with stories today is if you can't have good friendships. Like, that's I hate that you can't just have good friendships. Just have a good friendship. They're good friends. Why does it have to be? And honestly, same thing for Kaz and Inej, same thing with Nina and Matthias. Like, why can't we have just good friendships? Why do we have to pair up these 6 people and let's go ahead and make sure that they all have their romantic connection?
Right.
That does feel like a 17, 18, 19-year-old. That does feel right around there. We got to pair everybody up. But otherwise, I mean, overall, I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the book. I will.
They're great. They really are.
I will have to listen to the next one. Yeah. So you get us a little bit of a hint to a couple of things. We don't need to necessarily jump into what's coming in the series. Let's move on to what has kept me up at night. Fantasy casting this series. And I had to talk to Todd Turner and I were talking about Birthright, and we were casting these, and it was so hard with the ages. And so I've just decided from now on, when I fantasy cast stuff, I'm picking the actor, and then we can use CGI to change the ages if need be.
Whatever we need to do.
Yeah. So I'm going to let you share the ones that you may have picked out, and then I will share mine, and we'll kind of go through there. There is, on this list, I've got at least one name for all of them, except for one. So
oh man, I don't know that I have a name for all of them here. Let's see here. This is one that I unfortunately did not go through one by one and do this all, but I do want to say that Kaz Brecker, I think, would be a good, like, young Val Kilmer.
Okay.
Just stern face, kind of calm, constant voice, and that look in his eyes that he's always plotting something, like something that young Val Kilmer had really, really well, especially like if you look at Top Gun or even the Saints, some of these old 90s movies and whatnot, Top Guns before that, but just that look that he's not a good person or a nice person, but he's also not the bad guy, capital TBG, the bad guy.
Yeah.
And Kaz Brekker definitely balances that line of he's not a good person. Nobody expects him to be a good person, but he's also not the bad guy. And there are worse people out there that we need to be concerned about. And Val Kilmer, I think, communicates that really well. He does a really good job of, like, even when he's Mad Mardigan, the over the top crazy one, he's still not a good guy, but he's not the bad guy. So he plays that character really well. I feel like that young Val Kilmer.
I got you.
Yeah.
So if that's your first choice, then I am much closer to their ages likely. So for Kaz, I put Dacker Montgomery, who is on Stranger Things. He's the curly-headed guy that gets taken over by the Mind Flayer.
Yeah. So he's
he's
man,
also the Red
Billy.
Ranger. Yes, Billy. He's also the Red Ranger on the Power Rangers reboot. But again, some of the same things. He can definitely. He's a likable bad guy.
Pick.
He's a likable bad guy.
That's a great pick. Yeah.
And an attractive guy, but also very dark. So I thought that was how I kind of felt Kaz. I honestly, at first, I thought Leonardo DiCaprio. I thought that would be another good one as leading a crew, but I thought that was too on the nose. So I was like, let's go somebody else. So that was my pick for.
No,
Kaz.
I like yours better than mine. I'm looking at pictures of him right now, like, because I only know him from Stranger Things, and so I'm looking at other pictures of him right now, and he's got, like, I see some pictures with, like, kind of like my facial hair, where it's just kind of close trim mustache, and I'm like, no, dang, he looks like cunning. Yes. Yeah, that's good. Looks real good. So
okay,
good pick.
Thanks. Do you want me to go first on Inej?
Yeah, your turn. Go for it.
So Inej, I have Connor Leslie, who played the Wonder Woman in Titans. So Wonder Girl, whatever. Diana, is it Diana Prince? Diana Prince is Wonder Woman. I'm trying to remember who the sidekick.
Oh, no, she's Donna Troy.
Yes, Donna Troy. And so again, looking for somebody who could hold their own, and rough and tumble. And I thought that was who I came up with as I was driving around today going, I need to come up with this list before this episode today. So yeah, that was mine. Who was yours?
No, that's great. For me, Naomi Scott. Naomi Scott is from the Aladdin movie. I think is probably what she's best known for. I think she was also in Charlie's Angels, but she is beautiful, but also, like, definitely athletic and svelte, I guess is a good word to describe Inej with. And so I think she could definitely balance that. I am strong and athletic woman, but somebody who also would have been a very popular, within a brothel or whatever else. So definitely meets both of those standards there.
Yeah, look at these pictures again. I like your pick more than I like my pick. Well done. Well done. I think that's that. All right. Nina. Who do you have for Nina?
What I just based on her name, White Widow.
Yep.
Dang, I literally had her name in my brain just a second ago. She I can't believe I'm spacing Black Widow, Florence
Yelena.
Pugh.
I don't know her real name, but
Florence Pugh.
Yes, that's it. Yep.
Yeah, that's Florence Pugh is, in my opinion, perfect for this. So within the books, they often describe Nina as, a little rotund, a little overweight. That's not Florence Pugh, but also Florence Pugh is not Naomi Scott, super thin, svelte. You know what I mean? Like, she is beautiful, but also normal human looking type, and so she's perfect on that. But then also as White Widow, as Yelena, she brings the snark wonderfully. Like, she delivers snark so well. She's got that absolute look on her face that she's lovingly teasing you all the time. And I mean, Nina Zenik to a T for me. I think that she would just crush that role.
So yes, and looking at some of the other descriptions, I kind of felt that she was more of a some of the character pictures they had her as a redhead, like kind of a chubbier redhead or whatever.
Yeah.
But I went in a different direction.
Rubenesque. That's what I was looking for. Rubenesque.
That's a good word.
Yeah.
Do you need me, hon? Okay. So I have two. Here.
Okay.
I have the one that I originally wanted, but I wasn't sure was really going to fit because of the being in a brothel, more Rubenesque, and It's Iman Vellani, who played Miss Marvel on the Disney Plus show.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I saw her as in that part. I felt that was more in that part there.
Definitely a playful
Yes,
mindset there too.
yes,
Again, very
yes.
Nina. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I think
My
that's a good pick.
my second pick was Taylor Russell, who plays the oldest on the Lost in Space reboot on Netflix. The black adopted daughter. That's there. The scientist from that. So she's also in Escape Room and a couple other things. Older than some of this other crew was,
Right.
but was another one who I felt like could hold her own in that arena. So those were the
I don't
two.
know her. So yeah, I'm looking at her movies right now. I got my IMDb pulled up. So I
Same.
haven't seen
Me too.
anything in here that she's in. So yeah,
You have
I
not
don't
seen
know.
Lost in Space yet?
Not the new one, no.
Dude, cancel your weekend plans, man. Cancel your weekend plans.
What's it
Lost in
on?
Space. It's on Netflix,
Okay.
or
I
at least
may
it
do
was
that.
last I checked.
Yeah,
I'll say
right on,
this
right on.
too. It has very little language and very little other things that Netflix is known for throwing in their series. I
Oh, good.
watched it with my kids, the first several episodes with my kids. So,
Oh, heck yeah.
yeah,
I love that. Awesome. Awesome.
yep. All right. So, let's see. You went first on Nina. So I'll go
Right.
first on Matthias. I'm going Aiden Gallagher, who plays 5 on the Umbrella Academy.
Oh yeah.
So again, I was trying to find somebody who, and again, if you look at him now, like I only think of him as this really gangly guy in a suit, but you look at
Yeah.
him today, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's just got a chip on his shoulder, and so
I've not seen him in anything but the Umbrella Academy, so I'm trying to look for more recent pictures of him right now.
So yeah, so I felt like he was passed for a young soldier, younger guy, naive, believe what they would say, but also has a little bit of that fury in him to be able to turn that switch and go in a different direction. So yes, and he's actually looks closer to the age that is in the book, I guess. But again, I felt like that was one of the few characters I could see being a younger character. Just that
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
naivete, whatever else. So yeah, so that was my pick for Matthias.
I went the obvious route and I went young Chris Hemsworth.
Okay.
Just somebody who is the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, looks like, because the Driscoll, it's all supposed to be very
But he had to shave his beard. No beards
style.
until
no beard.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's all very Netherlands style, and so like the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, just beefcake, and that was Matthias to me always. And so just seeing that in the role of the Driscoll, I think would be a good pick for me. But man, I hadn't seen Aiden Gallagher in anything else, especially not as a young man now. And
no. Like I've only saw like that was in my mind his attitude, his character. I was like, I appreciate that, and then I was like, I wonder what he looks like now. And they dress him in such a way to make him look skinny and gangly and little. Like they dress him in such a way, but he's not that way. I mean, it's been 5 years since they filmed the first season, so I mean, he's obviously gotten be a little more of a grown up, but
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. So that was so I like your pick
good
too.
Pick,
I do like your pick. A young Chris Hemsworth. That's fun. All right. So who do you got for Jesper? This one was hard for me. This one was a challenge for me.
I had Justice Smith.
Okay.
So Justice Smith is from Detective Pikachu and also currently in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
And Justice Smith he perfectly plays the guy who is capable but also not very sure of himself, that he has abilities and he can be charming and he can be all this stuff, but underneath that is this deep insecurity. I don't know Justice Smith, so I don't know if that's him, but he plays that character really well in everything that he's been in. And that's Jesper to a T for me, where he is kind of like this, puts on this guise of confidence. He's very capable, very suave, but deep down inside he's just not confident. But it's a handsome guy, definitely able to go out there and do cool things, but just not confident. And so yeah, I think Justice Smith plays that part for me.
So I think that he was on my short list when I was driving around today, and I was like, I don't know if I can pick that, because he was in a movie recently. When I want to pick somebody who's not been something recently, but I didn't do that well with all these because my pick for Jesper has been in a TV series in the last year, and has been on several movies. That's Tony Revolori, who is on all the new Spider-Man movies as the jerk Eddie Brock, and he's on the Willow series as the prince who comes to marry, who comes to find. Oh my gosh.
Lord Anning.
Yes. So yeah, again, same things you're saying. It's competent but not confident. Able to do
exactly that. Yes.
Yep.
No, that's a great pick as well, and for the same reason. I think both of these guys play that character really, really well. So no, really good pick. I like that. That's a good one.
All right, so to round out the six, with the final member of the Six of Crows, Wyland Van Eck, I went for a much younger character, David Mazouz, who plays Bruce Wayne on Gotham.
Although he's a young man now, but yeah.
Yes. So I picked, again, thinking him small, drug along, rich dad. I thought he's played that character before, and this is just a less confident version of young Bruce Wayne. So that was
that's good. I like that one. That's
my
good.
Wyland Van Eck.
Again, for my castings are all in a time machine where I can go back and get different people from different areas.
Fair enough.
Wyland for me was young Billy Boyd. He plays Pippin in Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
And because he definitely can portray this like kind of dragged along, what am I even doing here? A little bedraggled, and then, but he gets his couple of moments of, wait, but I can do this. This thing right here, I can do this. So I just think that he's definitely a great character for just being kind of this confused side guy who's being dragged along for whatever's going on, and looks, kind of out of place. I think he'd be great for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you cast his dad, Jan Van Eck?
No, I did not.
Again, this is another Willow pick, but he's been in several things. Ralph Ineson. It really just feels like a British gangster. It's really what it's Ineson. British gangster. The idea of letting his son go and really not really caring kind of fit this guy's bill. He's also a Ravager on Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's been in a couple other things.
Yeah. Oh no, that's a good choice. And is he? No. Okay. I looked at him and I'm like, wait, is he Pekka Rollins in the TV show? He might be, good, but he's not. He's not. No. Okay.
I did wonder when you told me that. I was like, I wonder if any of these ones that I've thought of are this character, and they were not. They were not. So
no, I did not do Jan Van Eck. I do have Pekka Rollins though.
Okay, let me hear your Pekka Rollins.
Tom Hardy.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so a British gangster, but and current Tom Hardy, where he's in his more senior years.
Yeah.
He was a strong thug. Now he's the confident man in charge, and just again that Cockney British strong guy. I think Tom Hardy would portray that really well.
Okay, so I went with looking at the con man, the likable con man front, and this is somebody who I've not seen play the villain, but who I think would do a good job of it, and that's Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman.
He was on my short list. It was like, oh, Tom Hardy, Hugh Jackman, what guy here? I'm going Tom Hardy. So yeah.
No. I just thought I could see him just being really winsome to these two boys who are wanting to take their inheritance and play it big, and then just turn on them and go, I'm going to go in a different direction.
I really liked him because you could also see him being incredibly charming. He could be the devious con artist, but also incredibly charming. He could play either role really well. So that's why, again, I almost went with Hugh Jackman. 100%.
So
yes.
I don't have either of the You'll Buy Yours. I didn't think of either of them. Did you have somebody for either of those?
Yes. It's somebody who's not well known. I need to look up their name right now. Anyway, American. His name is. He's the star of the new Disney Plus TV show. American Born Chinese.
Okay.
Ben Wang. Ben Wang is his name, and he is in that show. Again, this is all I know him from, but in this show, he plays a intelligent teenager that is struggling with a lot of what is going on in the world around him, and a lot of it is way beyond him. And again, that's very much I'm blanking on both names. Bo Bayar is very much that with having to take over his father's place and whatnot. So just I think number one, I think that he's Shu, and so I tried to keep it within the, Shu is Chinese inspired, but at the same time, who's somebody who is young and would portray this role well. And I've been watching, I don't know if you've seen American Born Chinese, super fun, really good show.
It's on my list. I haven't watched it yet, but it is on my list.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Cool. Last one on our list, Tata Helene, the owner of the brothel.
Right.
I have two for this one. I have the one who I think could pull off the I'll get into it. So I've got two. The first one is Marion Cotillard, who was on Inception. She was Leonardo DiCaprio's wife. Again, she's also Al Ghul, Talia Al Ghul in the so that was one, and the other was Elizabeth Banks. Elizabeth Banks also, I would like to see her as this again. I don't think Elizabeth Banks could pull off the dark as well as Cotillard could.
Right.
However, I think that they are two sides of the same coin of the character. I think this character is a very interesting character. It would be yes. I don't think Cotillard is as winsome as Banks is either.
Right.
And to be able to carry that in. But those are two that I thought. Did you have somebody in mind for that final character?
Nicole Kidman.
Oh, yeah.
Nicole Kidman just balances that line really well, where she can be that dark and cunning and devious, also charming and kind and friendly. And like she's an incredible actress. And so just being able to kind of like hit all of those different attitudes that Tante Helene brings, I think Nicole Kidman would play really well.
Yep. Awesome. All right. We've got our this or that's. Let's jump into those real quick. What Grisha abilities would you want to have? Anything come to mind?
So immediately, like when people always ask what superpower would you want to have, everyone wants to say super strength. And so I immediately wanted to do the squalor, like wind and flying and all the cool stuff, whatnot. But when I really sat and thought about it, I think I went Heartrender. Okay. I think Heartrender has the most versatile abilities where they can heal and they can harm and they can, calm and excite. Like they have a lot of like versatility, and most of it can be used for very good things. So I went Heartrender.
Nice. I went Squalor, which is what you said before. And then I thought, I don't know, that's really necessarily what I would want. And I went with a Fabricator. The ability to make things, change things, whatever else. I thought that was really neat. I did some reading into other uses of it. And it goes, because in the book, really most of the Fabricator that we've seen was them trying to break that chain. And and so you don't see a whole lot of it, but it was very interesting to see. And I guess there's two classes of Fabricator. There's the alchemist one, which is what Yul Bayor was. I was looking at the other one that could take physical objects and mend them and bend them and mold them and all those things. That was where I went. But I would also like to be able to control wind and fly around, because my choice is always flight. I would always like to be able to fly.
Yeah, it's super cool. Again, Squalor is definitely the more exciting one. Absolutely, yes. But Fabricator is another really practical one. It was my second choice. And especially when you read the Shadow and Bone series, they get deep into the really cool things that fabricators can do. They have kind of a sky pirate guy who he's not a fabricator, but fabricators develop a lot of his like flying ships and things like that. So it's really cool.
Nice.
I just overall, I do want to say that these books are unique. Like they're not your typical Hunger Games, young adult type things. That these ones definitely bring a lot of genuine trauma that people deal with, a lot of real life emotions, as well as being in a fantasy world that feels lived in. That's what Star Wars did so well. It created a future that was lived in and felt used instead of all the shiny, gleamy things of the 50s and 60s. Star Wars came in and was like, what if the future was like now and ships are beat up and gross and dusty and whatnot? This does that. This has a fantasy world that just feels very lived in and natural, and the heist is exciting and cunning and definitely worth the read. I definitely recommend both of these books. And the Shadow and Bone book series, the three, are my least favorite of all of them. They're very good. They're worth the read, but they're very young adults. Those are the more like Hunger Games type ones where it's girl star with special abilities wants to know what boy she's going to marry, whatever else. But it's but they're worth the read. They're good, but they get better with Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. And then there's another series after that that is just incredible because it builds on the first 5 books. So the whole Grishaverse is worth reading. It really is.
Add it to my list. So, Steve, we were talking earlier. I said, is there anything you want to plug? And you said still Safe Point Ministries.
Yeah,
You're doing a lot of stuff there. So share a little bit what's going on in Safe Point Ministries, and also you mentioned the Nerd Culture Ministry Summit.
Yeah, so Safe Point specifically, we're an organization that helps people who are really nerdy and because of that find most of their community on the internet or in on camera, things like this. Helps them find a nerd-friendly home church in their area. So if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I have friends that play Magic or I have friends that play D&D or whatever else, but I just never felt a church where I feel comfortable. Hey, hit us up, safepointministries.com. We help find churches in your area that are comfortable with these things or that are utilizing these things. Like I know a church in Portland that does a D&D small group where they get together, play Dungeons and Dragons, and then afterward they have their Bible study. And it's a way to make sure that they're getting to play D&D and studying scripture every week.
There you go.
So
I like it.
Things like that. Yeah, I love it. So we'd love for you guys to come by. On top of this, though, we do a lot of online content just for funsies. So come watch me play Tears of the Kingdom every Monday. Pretty soon here, I'm going to be doing live pack openings for Lorcana, the Disney TCG that's coming out soon. Nice. So I'm going to be doing some live pack openings for that. So yeah, just some fun stuff there. As far as NCMS goes, though, in November, if you're like a part of a church, on staff or a volunteer at a church, the Nerd Culture Ministry Summit is coming in November. This is a conference that's helping teach churches and individuals how to utilize nerd culture to minister, to share the gospel with others, because it's so baffling to me. Nerd culture, video games, board games, movies, things like this are based in community. They're steeped in community of people either getting together to play this game or to talk about this thing. And then the church doesn't utilize these things as much as we really should. Right. And so it's just a great tool that the church isn't using. So NCMS is a conference that's there to help teach people and teach churches how to utilize nerd culture to share the gospel with people more. I'm one of the keynote speakers, which I'm really excited about. But there's a lot of other really great people there, like Mike Erie is a really well-known theologian and writer who's going to be one of the keynote speakers there. Susie Live from God Squad Church is a popular streamer who's going to be one of the keynote speakers there. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that's going to be going on. So yeah, check out the Nerd Culture Ministry Summit, and we hope to see you guys there.
Yep. I wish I could go, but I got a new job, so I can't go. That's I know. But no, that's good though. I mean, nerd culture, an extremely unreached people group who do not typically fit in with the social norms of your average American church. And so we go on mission trips all the time to other countries, to underreached geographical areas. And this is one that's an underreached area that could be right near you. I mean, Carrie and I are getting ready to start looking at other churches, looking to find one. And that's what we've discussed, is that especially in our area, we live in a rural area. The number of churches that probably are geek friendly, nerd friendly are probably very small, very few. And yet there are plenty that don't feel like they belong because we live in a rural area. If you don't play football, you probably don't fit in. And so we're looking forward to trying to be that for others coming up here soon. So yes, if you're involved in a church, you see the need there, check it out. It's put on by several intentional online ministry groups, Love Thy Nerd being one of them, which is how Steve and I met, and how I've connected with a lot of guys is through Love Thy Nerd. But it's definitely worth checking out to go and visit with. And even if at the very least you're just going to spend a couple days in Texas, to spend a couple days around your people, I think it'd be worth the trip. Bummed I'm going to miss it, but maybe next year. We'll see. We'll see. I'll save my days for LTN Con, whenever that is. I'll save for that. That'll be good. Well, Steve, man, I appreciate you coming on, man. And
it's been a delight, as always.
Look forward to doing the next one, whatever that is, whatever that topic is. Yeah. But thanks, man, for coming on.
Right on. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.
Thank you for spending some time with us. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Not sure what it is yet, but it's going to be a good one. I can tell you already. Of the episodes that we have coming up, there's some really good ones. We've got one where I'm talking with Zeke and Charlie about Avengers 3 and 4. I'm talking to Zeke about the Time Machine. I've got an episode coming up with a buddy of mine on the book Infinite. I've got one coming out on The Last of Us. I've got one coming out on John Carter. It's a lot. There's a lot coming out. I'm very excited. I'm not sure which one, though, is going to come first. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment so I can read it on the next episode. Would love that. If you're listening on Apple iTunes, podcast, whatever they call the app, if you could leave us a review, that'd be great. I'll read that on the show. And here in a little while, I'm going to be sending out a little prize pack for everyone who's filled out a review for us on iTunes. And so make sure you do that so you can possibly win that prize pack. And if you fill out any review, even if you don't get the prize pack, I will send you something. I'll send you something. So make sure you fill that out, and I'll reach out to you and get your address so you can get something from me with my face on it. If you head over to nextgennerd.com, you can also share any episode that you want from there. You can share it to your socials, email, write it in a little note and mail it to somebody. I don't care. Share it. And if you want even more Next Gen Nerd, you can follow me on Instagram or on Twitter. There's not a whole lot on there because I don't spend a whole lot of time on social media, but we do post some stuff on there, pictures of my kids, things that are going on. Hopefully in the near future, some clips that are coming up and of the show. So hopefully you guys can check that out and enjoy that. Yeah, I think that's everything. Enjoyed being on here. Can't wait to hear from you guys and comments and things like that. So until next time.
Peace out, Seacrest.